Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Mike McDowd. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a trivia question. And I do want to welcome our latest additional station, AM 1550 SLC Sports Radio in Salt Lake City and throughout the Salt Lake Valley, with a special thanks to Program Director Dino Costa. And Mike, tell us what's on the agenda today. What are we going to be talking about?
I'll tell you what, our good friend Dino Costa is getting a lot of airtime. His name's being mentioned a lot. Yeah. So, Dino, you must be doing a heck of a job in Salt Lake City. Kudos to you and your station. But, hey, listen, we've got a riveting discussion, landmark decision. The NCAA is now going to have to pay its college athletes, and our good friend, who has become a good friend of the show, Peter Goplerud, who is a sports attorney, he's an attorney who specializes in the world of sports, and he is the go-to guy on a matter like this. I mean, this is equivalent to a 7.1 Loma Prieta earthquake hitting the Bay Area. I mean, this is going to rock the landscape. This is how big this is. But could you imagine? I'm going to use this as a tease for Peter, but imagine the great Jim Thorpe with the mighty Indian school, Carlisle School of Indians, if he was to get paid back in the day, and arguably the greatest athlete in American history, what would he say? What would Bill Walton say? What would John Wooden say? I mean, you talk about historical significance, everything changes. So Peter's our go-to guy. We're looking forward to having him, and I know he's standing by in that beautiful little box. We'll be with him in just a moment.
And we're going to cut out for our first commercial break here, and I noticed that our other co-host, Russell Jackman, is going to join us in the second segment as well. All right, audience, stay tuned. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowd and Russell Jackman. Our special guest is Peter Goplerud. And Mike, you want to reintroduce our guest, then we'll go on with all of these topics because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Well, yeah, you eloquently said his name. Peter's standing by. Peter, as we alluded to, sports law attorney, specializes in really anything. It used to be, and it was a sports agent as well. Excuse me, as my voice goes south or north, for that matter. But Peter, welcome to the show. We love having you back because college sports is forever changing. The landscape has been rocked. Athletes now have to get paid. What would John Wooden say? That's my question. What would John Wooden say?
And let me tag on to that. My big question is it just going to be the biggest schools with the most endowments get the best players? Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I think it's even though the judge approved the long-awaited approval in the House settlement on Friday night, like she was like media savvy, doing a late Friday night news dump. There's still a lot to be sorted out here, and a lot that people have been planning for, or at least they better have been planning for since May of 24, when the NCAA and the plaintiffs tentatively agreed to this settlement. To kind of recap what's been out there, sort of ad nauseum all over the weekend. What the settlement means is that first off, there will be a payment of damages to athletes, certain athletes who participated in collegiate athletics between 2016 and the date of the approval of the settlement. That amount is about $2.6 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars that would be paid out over a 10-year period.
Let me ask you, Peter, how did they get to that date? Why did they start at 2016?
That was the case was filed in 2020, and the statute of limitations for antitrust is 4 years. So they did a look back at 4 years. This case has been pending since 2020. 20. But the bigger piece, and the piece I think, Mike, that you're referring to in terms of what's going to happen with collegiate athletics going forward, is the settlement allows schools, in fact, it requires the defendant schools, and the defendants are only the schools, the so-called Power Four schools, plus Notre Dame. It requires them to begin paying up to $20.5 million per year to their athletes. There's a cap on what they can pay, and this is supposedly for their NIL. And this is going to put them into contracts with their schools for group licensing and other sorts of, quote, NIL opportunities. In addition to that, there used to be limitations on the number of scholarships within each sport in Division I. Those are gone now, at least for the Power Four schools, and those schools outside the Power Four that decide to opt in to this piece of the settlement, they'll be replaced by roster limits, which in some cases will be make for more opportunities for athletes. In some cases, it's going to take away some spots.
So Peter, you said that there's a limit of 25 million. Is there a limit on per person also?
No. It's actually it's 20.
One guy.
It's 20.5 million.
20.5.
It's based on a formula of 22% of certain of the average of certain revenues that Power Four schools have that analyzed over a period of years.
So in theory, if they have one major athlete, they could pay it all to one guy.
They could. Now, but here's where things are going to get more interesting. The allocation of the damages piece of the settlement was set by the plaintiff's economist, and that provides for 75% of that $2.6 billion to go to football players at the Power Four schools. The other 15% goes to basketball players, men's basketball players at the Power Four schools, 5% to women's basketball at Power Four schools, and 5% to all other athletes within Division I that qualify for that. The estimates are, although it's going to be up to each school to decide how to pay out that $20.5 million per year, estimates are they're going to use the same allocation formula as the damages. In other words, football is going to get the bulk of this money.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. It's all the economists figured out how much income comes in based on that. So it's not like, he likes football more than the other.
Well, it makes sense from that standpoint, but it raises potentially some very complicated questions with regard to a number of things, not the least of which is compliance with Title IX. And there are arguments out there, and there are likely to be lawsuits with regard to these payments because any kind of financial assistance that comes from a school to a student athlete has to be distributed in a proportional amount to the number of men and women athletes participating.
Oh, wow.
And the question then becomes whether this revenue sharing qualifies under the language of the regulations for Title IX as financial assistance. That's yet to be decided by the courts.
I mean, the way I look at it, if for some reason it was, women's basketball was 10 times more revenue generating than men's, then the women should get most of the money. I got no problem with that. It should just, but that's me. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's fair to say we all know this. Equality is out the door. Okay, they're doing this almost quote in the name of equity, equality. No. Football, basketball. Peter and we spoke to this last time we had Peter on. Are all the big breadwinners? They bring in the majority of really the funding for the athletic department. Sorry, Charlie. Women's soccer. I love the sport. Not going to be paid well. Field hockey, women's swimming, men's swimming. So there's a huge disparity. Peter, I don't know what you can say to this, but truly, equity and equality is not going to be found in this decision.
And don't forget about bowling. What about the bowling team?
Rodeo too.
There's a bunch of sports out there that are very dependent upon football for their budgets. There's no question about that. But there is that nagging little thing of a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in programs supported by federal funding. And every college and university within Division I is supported by federal funding. So we'll leave it to the lawyers.
Okay. All right. We're gonna cut to our first commercial break. I know Russell's got something he's got to do right now, but I'm sure he'll pop right in with some great questions himself. All right. Here's our first trivia question: which is the only band to have played in Antarctica? That's our trivia question. All right. Which is the only band to have played in Antarctica? Even though I'll give you a hint, I don't think this is going to help. It happened in 2013. And I think the reason they did that is they wanted to play on all 7 continents. So that was the that was the goal of that. All right, when we come back, we're going to continue on with Peter Goplerud, but also we want to talk about Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. My guess is that's not going to last too long. I figured the Thunder were going to win. I figured first in 5 games, but after that exciting win by Indiana, game 1, I think maybe it'll go to 6 games. But I still think my prediction is the Thunder will take it. But I'm not a betting man, so I don't place any bets on it. And if you do bet on one and you lose, don't blame me, okay? This is just my personal opinion. All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown along with Mike McDowd, Russell Jackman, who we haven't heard from yet, and Peter Goplerud, our special guest. Trivia question number 1, which is the only band to have played in Antarctica?
I'm going to guess you too.
I was going to say that.
You're going to say that too? No, actually it was
Yeah.
Metallica. Metallica was the only band who
Really?
played.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how many people. They didn't say how many people they played for. But Mike, you have a question for our guest? Or a
I used to see Lars, the drummer for Metallica, out in the batting cages out on Lucas Valley Road. He took us out. I had a conversation one time and didn't really even know who he was. I'm like, all right, whatever, it's cool. Nice guy. Anyways, had to share that one. Very profound comment there by me. Peter, since 2021, athletes have been able to make money from like third parties. So I guess essentially boosters, organized groups, they call them collectives. They use the NIL money. It's like almost like de facto salaries. And so, paying millions of dollars to top-rated football players and basketball players. But now, I think, and guide us, the money will come directly from the athletic department. And of course, decades ago, years ago, that would have been, they would have had the local police department and sheriff's department jumping in the athletic center to do an investigation. But so where does this all leave us now?
And how does that affect recruiting? Like
it's clearly going to impact recruiting. And Mike, to your point, the third party NIL stuff is still going to be there. It is absolutely going to be there. It is, however, going to be under the terms of the settlement. Any deal from a third party for more than $600 is subject to review by an independent agency that has now been set up. Deloitte, the accounting firm, is going to be handling the review of all these, and they will be working within a newly created entity called the College Sports Commission that was launched over the weekend, immediately following the approval of the settlement. The College Sports Commission is going to be responsible for enforcement of all aspects of the settlement. Basically, they're taking away almost all of the NCAA's enforcement responsibilities that previously
that's actually
existed.
my question on the recruiting part. I mean, obviously it'll affect recruiting, but I'm wondering if they're going to change any of the rules. Like, you can't talk to high school players. And there's certain specific barriers that I wonder how many of those have changed during this also.
Well, some of them have changed over the last few years, at least in particular, the use of NIL as a recruitment tool has been very prevalent under the table, if you will, for a while, and then above the table following a decision by a federal court in Tennessee that caused the NCAA to basically put a pause on all of its rules with regard to NIL and its use as a recruitment tool. Where that goes now remains to be seen. And the other thing that's out there are a number of state laws, Tennessee, Texas, West Virginia, for example, that are in complete conflict with some of the terms of the settlement.
Gotcha.
And
wait, hey, Russell, you've been waiting kind of patiently. Did you have any comments or questions for Peter?
No, college sports isn't really one of my specialties, so I'm going to wait for you guys to circle around to an area that I have more of an opinion on.
The pros, yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Peter, you are an attorney who specializes in sports law. You're a professor. You teach right now, and you've been a dean of law schools, and you're at Florida A&M. And so, in your years, because you're really a pioneer in sports law. Sports law didn't really exist when you were first practicing. You told me that. Where does this in the pantheon of sports issues land in your barometer? I mean, is this as big of a situation as you've seen in sports law? Because it really changes the sports business, the college sports business kind of entity, doesn't it?
Oh, I think there's no doubt about that, Mike. This decision is as big as any that there has ever been in regard to collegiate sports, for sure. From the judicial perspective, the only thing that I think comes close that actually paved the way for this was the decision in the mid '80s by the U.S. Supreme Court with regard to the NCAA's restrictions on football television. That said that those restrictions were a violation of the antitrust laws, and that basically opened the door then for us to have, instead of 3 games a week on Saturday of college football, today Sunday is probably the only day of the week where there's not college football broadcast, and what that has meant, of course, is a lot of bucks. And that's how we got to here. Really was with the that case is NCAA versus Board of Regents, and it set the stage, I think, for 41 years later, the House settlement to be approved. But as I said, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and likely to be a bunch more in the way of litigation. Right now, there are probably 6 cases pending with regard to challenges to the NCAA's eligibility rules. You have 5 years to play four seasons of your sport. There are 3 different courts that have found that rule to be an antitrust violation. And the reason that these cases are coming is because of this amount of money that's going to be available. It is particularly important for some of these players to be able to stay in school another year, or maybe another 2 or 3 years, to be able to make NIL money, especially if they can make pretty good NIL money, but they're not likely to be able to play in the NFL or the NBA.
And the thing that's really kind of cool about this too is the fact that a lot of these players who are going to make this money, they'll get hurt before they go to the pros, or there'll be some reason why they don't go to the pros. So it's kind of nice that, they've kind of had a boost to their bank account.
Well, and I go back to, I've been urging on different programs and in a couple of different articles that I wrote back in the 90s that it was time to pay players in some way or another. But at the same time, there are all sorts of logistical, legal, and practical challenges to it. Think back to not that long ago in my part of the world here in Florida, when you could go into the student union bookstore in Gainesville and see Tim Tebow's jersey for sale for $75. His name was not on it, but his number was there, and they were selling hundreds and hundreds of those, and he didn't get a dime for that. And that sort of thing happened all over the country.
And I know one of the arguments also was the fact that a lot of these guys got full ride scholarships, and so there was effectively they got paid to go to college.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no, it's all fine and dandy, but since 2021, and Peter, really the whole crux of this, we're going to be viewing these athletes are going to be treated like entertainers now. Okay, because they're really the entertainers under the guise of athletes who are making this money, and I think that's an interesting term that I read. Any thoughts on that? Because they are essentially now paid entertainers.
Well, they're going to be paid upfront and legally entertainers. I think we all understand that there's an entertainment element to collegiate sports that has always been there, and B, there's payments that have always been there. They just haven't been always recognized unless somebody got caught in an NCAA investigation.
If you were to grab your magic crystal ball, rub it 4 times, and then tap it on top, do you foresee a absolute how do I say this massive problem, for lack of a better phrase, when it comes to, let's say, the women's field hockey team, the girls rugby team? At some point they're going to say, this isn't fair. We're putting in as much hard work, time, and effort. Plus, we go to school, and this is a full-time job. But when is that going to come down? Do you foresee that?
Oh, I foresee that probably within the next 60 days. I think that there'll be Title IX lawsuits. The minute the payments will can start effective July 1 under the revenue share payment piece of the settlement. Most of the athletes who are going to be participating this fall and within the next academic year have already had contracts presented to them for their piece of the revenue share.
Gotcha. Hey guys, let's go to our next commercial break here. Excuse me. What is the only animal species where males get pregnant? What's the only animal species where males get pregnant? And I kind of look at this question, I go, well, then wouldn't they be females? I don't know how they would know the difference, but okay. That's our trivia question. Stay with us, Sports Econ 101. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown. Michael McDowell here, also Russell Jackman, and our special guest, Peter Goplerud. Second trivia question, what's the only animal species where males get pregnant?
Is it the clownfish?
Clownfish? No, but you are in the right section of the earth. It's a seahorse.
I was going to say, was it the seahorse?
Yeah, but I don't understand. If it's just isn't that just the female then? I don't
Here's the thing, and I'm not going to get too nerdy on you. The clownfish changes sex. It starts off as a male, then it turns female, and then turns back to male again. So I don't know technically if that counts or not. You know
what? I'll give you credit for that. That's okay. Pretty good. Here, finish up your. We know that your time is running short. Go ahead and finish off about.
I was before the break. I was talking about the fact that most of the players who are going to benefit, football players, other fall sports athletes, both male and female, have particularly at the Power 4 schools, have already been presented with contracts that spell out what they're going to make for their piece of the revenue share, what their responsibilities are, and so on. And hopefully they've all gotten some review of those contracts by an attorney. My guess is they haven't, but that's a different topic altogether. The issue that you raised, Mike, with regard to women on the rugby team or the field hockey team challenging any of this, that's where I'm saying within the next 60 days, when these payments are going to start July 1, somebody somewhere, and maybe multiple somebodies, are going to sue their schools for Title IX violations based upon disproportionate allocations of the revenue share money. It's not going to be 2 or 3 years down the road. It's going to be very soon.
Gotcha. Peter, thank you so much. I know your time is limited. One last thing from Mike.
You got one time? I think he's got one time for one last question, don't you, Peter?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
He's got a few more minutes. Hey, Peter, quick question. I've asked you before, but I think since we're rehashing this new decision and topic, but clearly we've said, well, they don't exist anymore. Big Ten, SEC, ACC, the big three. I guess there's a fourth conference with, what is it, Arizona, BYU, that conference. What is that?
My alma mater's conference.
Kansas is in there, yes. So let's say there's 4 power players, and are they really just going to run the rule? I mean, absolutely just run the table in terms of prestige, power, and really just able to kind of buy their way and own the college landscape.
I think there's definitely some danger there. At this moment, there's actually a proposal circulating among Division I schools that would give the Power Four conferences 65% voting rights on every NCAA committee. That would mean that basically 70 schools are going to absolutely control everything that impacts 350 schools total. I think what we may see in the not too distant future is a break off by the Power Four or a portion of the Power Four for football purposes. The fear of the other schools is that they're going to break off completely and take the basketball tournament with them. And for that reason, the schools in the so-called group of 6, the other FBS conferences, plus what are called the CCA 22, the lower 22 Division I conferences, they're acting very cautiously right now because they can't afford to lose that basketball tournament piece of things. That is a big piece of the lifeblood of those lower tier conferences is the money from the basketball tournament. That's going to tell us a lot, I think. How the College Sports Commission morphs into whether it is strictly going to be an enforcement arm or whether eventually it's going to be something that runs all of college sports and replaces the NCAA. And then there's, what does Congress do, if anything? And my hope is nothing, but that's only because I have a high level of confidence and concern that Congress, if it steps in, is fully capable of completely screwing up the works.
Yeah. No doubt. And further, sorry. But guys like Edward, okay, we mentioned Cal Poly football team, Cal Poly rodeo team, Wyoming, the Cowboys, Georgia Southern, Florida A&M. All those schools and there's so many more. Citadel, Washington State, San Jose State. All those schools have so much heart and passion. People love these teams, but what's going to happen to these programs is because, I love rooting for the little guy, and I think America does too, but, we're going to be sick and tired of seeing Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and, Florida playing. Well, you know what I'm saying. But what's going to happen to these great institutions that America loves?
Well, that's where the challenge is going to come, and there are a number of those schools down the food chain, if you will, that have already decided to opt in to the settlement. And by that means they're trying to find some bucks. They're not going to spend 20.5 million, but maybe they will come up with 5 million that they can pay their athletes that they wouldn't be able to pay otherwise. But if they do that, then they have to switch over from scholarship limits to roster limits and buy into the whole piece. This next weekend, June 15th, Sunday, is the deadline under the terms of the settlement for schools outside of the Power Four to opt in to the settlement. Power Four schools have no option. They're in it. They are the defendants. They settled. The remaining Division I schools can opt in. One final tweak on this that I might have mentioned when we spoke the last time, but the schools that could have a very interesting advantage are Big East and Big West, West Coast Conference schools that are basketball only. If they opt in, and the Big East schools are opting in, they can spend still up to $20.5 million all on basketball. And
So we're talking about University of San Francisco, Gonzaga, Pepperdine, Loyola Maryland, those types of schools?
Gonzaga is now Big 12 for basketball.
That's right. Okay, they're good.
But like St. John's, Creighton,
Okay.
Marquette, all of those schools. I mean, St. John's already is a preseason number one coming up for this next year, and they're already estimates that they're going to spend maybe 8 or 10 million on basketball, and they've got donors that can help them come up with that kind of money.
Great. Peter, thank you so much. I know your time is limited right at the top of the hour. Really appreciate you coming on.
I enjoyed it, guys, and happy to be a resource for you down the road.
Terrific.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Now we're going to go on to talk a little professional sports, and this is where I know Russell will want to come in. Let's talk about the Thunder and Indiana. Again, my prediction was originally before the series started was 5 games. That it was going to take the Thunder 5 games, but I'm pushing that to 6 games just because of Halliburton with that awesome shot at the end. Isn't it incredible? It's like
I still think that first game win is maybe, in my opinion, the most mysterious NBA Finals victory that I've ever seen in my life.
Well, you think about it, it was that was the only lead they had was the last second.
But not just that. You look at the scores. Shai Gilgeous had 38 points. Okay, the highest leading scorer for Indiana was 19 for Pascal Siakam. Yeah. You look at the game by Halliburton. You'd say, oh well, he probably had a monster game. 14 points, 10 rebounds, which was impressive, but not the eye opener. And you would have thought, well, he probably had 20 assists. He had 6 assists, and he was tied with Nemhard, I think, for.
Well, they spread it out quite a bit.
Yeah, it was just an entire team victory that got them the win, and it did surprise me that they were able to pull that off. As you said, the only time they led was with 0.4 seconds left in the entire game. So, you'd say they're not going to be able to duplicate that, but they've already proven that they have the ability to do that. And I'm beginning to think it might not be a slam dunk for Oklahoma City to win all this.
Yeah, but what is your prediction, though?
The numbers say that Oklahoma City has to win. The 68-win team doesn't just fold to a 52-win team. But I was saying to my friend that Indiana is probably the quietest and most unassuming 52-win team that the league has ever had, and for them to accomplish what they've accomplished, even if they don't win any more games in the finals, they've already proven that they're much more of a capable team than I think anyone would have thought of. And you can just ask Thibodeau how competent they are. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Boy, that's a tough act. I mean, you make it to the Eastern Conference Finals the first time since 2002 for your team, and you get fired anyway.
That's unbelievable. But don't you guys don't find it refreshing? And again, yeah, it's always nice to have the Golden State Warriors, the Knicks, the Celtics, your marquee teams, the Lakers. But it's so nice to have these smaller market teams, particularly Oklahoma, Indiana. I mean, this is good for the game of basketball.
I agree.
It
And you get to
really
know the
is.
players more. It's like, if you didn't really follow basketball too much, you get Tyrese Halliburton. Okay, I'm not familiar with him, right? But then,
Yeah.
I mean, as an average fan, right? But then you start watching this stuff and you go, wow, holy smokes. I mean, unfortunately, Pascal Siakam still has he's a great player and all that, but after the Raptors beat our Warriors unbelievably, that was a frustrating one for me because Pascal had a big part to that.
Well, so the injuries, Clay Thompson and Durant were hurt, and I think if they'd been healthy, then the Warriors would have won that one. And who knows what the fate of the league would have been if the Warriors had won 3 titles in a row.
Yeah, good point. Just before we go to our break here, Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. Do you think he maybe makes it the whole season?
I didn't hear that was official. Did he officially sign with the Steelers?
It's a done deal.
Okay.
It's a done deal. Yeah, it's a done deal.
It's obviously he's still a Hall of Fame player, but how old is he now? 40 something?
41 or 2, right on there.
Tom Brady played till what? He was 41.
Yeah, no, I still listen. If he's healthy, he can play. Why not? I mean,
he's not. He's not.
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
I'm willing to bet you he winds up being a dog out there and accomplishes nothing.
I just don't think he has it. Okay. Third trivia question, guys. In which U.S. state is it illegal to remarry the same person 4 times? Isn't that a crazy question? All right, audience, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be back with some closing comments. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowd and Russell Jackman. Our third trivia question. In which state is it illegal to remarry the same person 4 times? Apparently, you can do it 3 times, but you can't do it 4 times. Go ahead, Mike.
Got it.
Nevada? That's actually a good guess. No, it's Kentucky.
Okay. Kentucky, really? That's shocking.
Yeah.
I was going to say Utah.
Yeah, that would have been a good one too. Yeah, Nevada. Yeah.
Hey, off the air, we talked about the swinging A's, formerly of Oakland, now Sacramento, 26-41. Yay, good for the A's. Last place. Just want to say, shout out to Sacramento.
Yeah, just like the
Shout
Colorado
out to
Rockies.
Fisher. He couldn't happen to a nicer owner.
Yeah, and the Colorado Rockies. You think they're going to kick the whole team down to AAA? I don't know. They're like
If they disbanded the Colorado Rockies, would anybody notice? If the Colorado
only the
Rockies,
people in Denver.
if they stopped playing baseball completely in Denver, that's a team that should move to just a different location.
And they have a beautiful field. Wow, I mean, it sucks because their stadium's gorgeous. And did they win a World Series? Don't they have one?
No, they got into the World Series once. They lost the Red Sox.
That's right. So
all right, guys. Did I tell you my silly joke of the week? So there's a fisherman.
Please do.
Okay, a fisherman started dating a mermaid. You know where he met her? Online.
Oh,
Oh, God. That's a gasp from Russ.
that is really bad.
And here's our thoughts for the day. So someone broke into my garage last night and stole my limbo stick. I mean, seriously, how low
Can you go?
There you go. I knew you'd know that one. And my wife dated a clown before marrying me. I had some big shoes to fill. All right, audience, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Why don't cannibals eat clowns?
Because they taste funny.
It tastes funny. See you guys. Adios.